Good morning, boys and girls of the internet. Today is Thursday, May 17th, 2018. This will be vlog number 136. And as you can see, more God of War gameplay. But today is actually kind of fitting for what I want to talk about for today's vlog. And that is mythology, specifically Norse mythology. Now, as you may know, the God of War franchise has always been steeped in mythology. The first, every game up until this last one has all been about Greek. Kratos, he's a Greek, and he becomes a Greek God of War. Now, in this game, he's in like the Norwegian type areas, and it's all about Norse mythology, which I find quite fascinating. I've always been interested in that type of mythology. I've always been interested into the North. I can't even say that word this morning. I'm freaking tired. Norse mythology, only because I found the whole concept just kind of really fascinating, and all the stories and all the the gods that they have, and concept of different realms, the world tree, all that stuff. Pretty fascinating. Now, what's cool about this new God of War game is that you could obviously tell they did some research on it, because in the game there's all kinds of things called there's like lore markers and like different little things in the game that kind of give you like snippets of information about Norse mythology. It tells you things about little stories about what certain gods are doing and stuff. Odin and Thor and all that stuff. And then partway through the game, you meet a character. His name is Mimir, and you get to travel with this Mimir. Well, you get to travel with his head, and Mimir has knows everything. Well, he's supposed to. They kind of make like, oh wait, I can't really quite remember that. My brain's still coming back. It's kind of funny, but he also tells you stories. So not only is there markers in the world that kind of give you little side stories, but Mimir also tells you some stories too about like what certain gods are doing, and it's all pretty damn interesting. So it got me kind of like reinvigorated and interested in the mythology of it all. Because like when I was a teenager, I was kind of getting into like being interested in the mythology, and this is extremely nerdy of me to admit, but it was all because of a little manga and anime series called Oh My Goddess. Now, if anybody knows anything about Oh My Goddess, it's not like super tied into it, but it's the basis behind these goddesses is Norse mythology. So like all three goddesses, Belandi, Erd, and Skuld, are all kind of based off these three Norns that look after Yggdrasil, the world tree. And this is all in mythology. So it got me interested in way back then, into mythology, and I looked into it a little bit, but I stopped researching. But this, now playing God of War, it sparked my imagination again. It sparked my interest again. So last night at work, for part of my work, I was like, you know what? I'm curious. Let me see what YouTube has. And I found a series of videos. I kind of went through, kind of briefly, a lot of the Norse mythology. Kind of showing, from like the universe's creation to the gods' creations, and then it kind of went to like certain stories about like some tales and fables from the legends and whatnot. But I found it, it's all pretty fascinating. I want to do some more because I could tell this, little video series, touched very lightly on, what was going on. And I'm kind of more interested into seeing what more to it is. Now, it is a mythology, like I believe all religions are mythologies. They're all stories and fables and parables and just kind of things to pass around at campfires to kind of guide your children and to raise people and to tell people right from wrong, and then just kind of stories about how the world works and stuff, things like that. That's pretty much all religion is. But it's pretty fascinating what polytheistic religions like. Shit, that person stopped really short. Come on, move it. Sorry. I'm sitting here driving and the person in front of me stopped really, really short, and they weren't accelerating as I was trying to move into the merge lane. At any rate, all polytheistic religions, they're all pretty interesting in terms of it's not like a monotheistic religion where especially the Abrahamic ones where there's a God of creation and he goes, the universe is there. But usually in monotheistic, that God has always been. He's eternal. He's been there before anything. Now, I'm pretty sure Greek mythology and also Egyptian mythology is like this, but in Norse mythology, the universe was created before anything, before any gods were. And I found that pretty interesting. I was like, well, that's different. And kind of the deities and the gods and all the Asgardians and the giants and the dark elves and the dwarves and all that, they all kind of grew out of things. There's one story about how man and woman was developed, and they were pretty much sweated out of this giant thing out of his armpits. So wear armpit sweat or something like that. I'm not 100% on they kind of brushed over it real quick. I was like, what? Really? Is that really humans or people, man and woman? So I thought that was pretty interesting. Also, of course, I'm sure a lot of people are interested in Norse mythology now, not just from the God of War game, but also from the recent bout of Marvel movies. As you know, Thor, Loki, Odin, all that from the Marvel comics and movies. That's all based off Norse mythology. Now, of course, the comics take a lot of liberties and they change some things. For example, I didn't know this, but in the Norse mythology, Fenrir, the kind of the demon dog. No, he's not a demon dog, but he's that big ass dog beast thing. He's actually Loki's son. All right, I didn't know that. And the story about how Fenrir, started growing so big and so powerful that even the gods were kind of afraid of him. They're we gotta bind him up and chain him down. That's kind of a story from mythology that he's just a bound dog, and apparently he probably I think if I remember correctly, he kind of paves a way for Ragnarok to start later on. But so they try to chain him down when he's smaller, breaks out of the chains. They make some more chains, bigger, heavier chains. But yeah, he's Fenrir grew bigger, breaks out of those. And then they went to a was it a dwarven smith or was it a dark elf smith? I forget what the story said. He went there and like they're like, hey, we need you to develop a chain for Fenrir. He's really, really strong or something. So he's like, okay, I got something for you. He's he also like, has some magic in him. Like I'm gonna make something for you, and he makes a silken rope instead of a chain. And they're like, and it's funny the way the story put it. Like, you got the guy who's reading the story, gives everybody like voices and stuff, and he tries to act out the parts. And he's saying, what the dwarf was making. He's like, he's like, oh, I made this rope here, and the guy, I think it might have been Loki that was asking for the rope or the chain, and he's like, how can this bind him? He's this is just a rope, a silk rope. What about a chain? We need something stronger than this. He's like, this thing's a special rope. I made it out of the 6 most, impossible things that you can't find in the world. Like, I don't remember all the things, but like one of them was like the roots of a mountain, the breath of a fish, the beard of a woman, and what was the other one? The sound of a cat's footfalls. And then the gods all like, that's impossible. All this stuff, they don't exist. He's like, that's why this thing is special, because it was really hard to find those things. And so that was all. That's pretty funny little parable there. But they take the rope to Fenrir, and they're all like, okay, we gotta bind you, because you're dangerous. And he's like, nope, not gonna bind me. And eventually they kind of convince him, it's like, let's just try to, if you think this rope, won't hold you because it's just a silk rope, then that's fine. But if it does hold you, then you're not as strong as you think you are, and we have nothing really to fear from you. And Fenrir's like, okay, well, if that be the case, you can tie me up, but when you do it, one of you has to put your right hand in my mouth. So if it binds me up and I can't escape, I'm taking one of your hands. And Tyr, basically the god of war, he's the best warrior of the land pretty much. He's like, okay, I'll do it. I'll put my right hand in your mouth, because he doesn't think that Fenrir will he thinks he'll get out of this silk rope. So he doesn't have fear of his hand being lost. But this rope, after they tie him up with it, it gets tighter and tighter and tighter, and Fenrir can't escape out of it. And Fenrir's like, fine, fuckers. Chomp, bites Tyr's hand off. Tyr gets mad, takes his sword out of his sheath with his right hand, stabs it through Fenrir's lower jaw in his mouth, and like stabs it into the ground, kind of binds him there. Odin, he takes like some chain, puts it around the rope, and puts a giant spike into the ground, puts a giant rock onto the spike, so like basically no one can lift the spike, and they kind of bind him up that way. So that's all very interesting. And then of course you remember in Thor Ragnarok, Hela, which in the story they say he's Odin's daughter, but it's different in the actual mythology. I forget who she really is, but she is like the goddess of hell, kind of. In the movie, she goes down to the basement, and Fenrir's down there, chained up and tied up, so she releases him. So, there's a lot of they borrow a lot from what the mythology really said. But again, it's all very fascinating. To me, it's a lot more of a fun religion than some of the religions we have today. Today most people classify those as mythology. Me, I classify all religions as mythology, because it's all just myths and legends and nothing everybody can ever prove. But of course, since The Norse, the Greeks, Egyptians, they've all kind of fell by the wayside, or adopted our modern religions. Their prior religions has fallen the wayside of mythology. And that's kind of a shame. It was funny when I was watching this little documentary series on YouTube. I looked at a couple of YouTube comments, and a couple people were all like, I'm from like Norway, and there's a lot of us here that still believe this stuff. This isn't mythology to us anymore. It's actually kind of growing. With the number of people who are believing this stuff. I'm like, that's kind of interesting. So before you know it, we're gonna have people. We're gonna pull, Norse mythology out of mythology and just call it an actual religion once again, and put it in the same category as like Christianity and Catholicism, Judaism, and all that stuff. So, what do you think about that? I mean, like I said, I think all religions are mythology and all should stay there. The stories can still stick around. I'm not going to take those stories away from anybody. But if we're going to learn the stories, we should just learn them in all the proper context. Same thing if we were going to learn the stories of Lord of the Rings or Dragonlance or The Lion, Witch, and the Wardrobe or Huckleberry Finn. Those are all fiction and all important stories, and it's good to have them. I would never want to get rid of them, but that's where we should keep religions, religious stories, in the fiction section. So there you go. For anybody questions what my beliefs are, it's all fables. It's all fake. It's all fictional. And if anything, as a joke, I try to say saying, "Oh my God," I say it's like great Odin's raven or something like that, or by Zeus's beard, and saying phrases like that, just to be funny. But they're just as equal to me as saying, "Oh Jesus," or praise Allah or something. It's all the same to me. What y'all think about? What if you were to bring back any mythological religion from the past back and make it like more mainstream? Which one would you rather have? Me, I'm biased. I'd rather have Norse mythology back. I would love to see people like going to church and praying to Thor or something. I don't know. That all sounds kind of funny to me. So sounds kind of cool. I would do it just to do it.
Where in the temple did you find this?
Anyway, I think that's about all I'll mention for today. Time for me to go to bed, because I gotta get up kind of early. I think we definitely have a photo shoot for later on today. So I will talk to y'all later. Everybody have a good day. And I love you, and praise Odin.